All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to NCARB Live. Today we're going to be discussing ARE 5.0 and some of our recent announcements about the upcoming exam. I'm Amanda Pica, and joining me today is Jared Zern, our Director of Examination, and Ryan Meisner, our Assistant Director of Examination Development and Research. You can submit your questions in the Q&A box on your screen throughout the entire discussion, and we'll answer those at the end. But first, before we get into your question, let's just give a brief overview of the exam. And Jared, can you start us off with just some basics about ARE 5.0, maybe after the sirens pass us by?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I'll say is I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. Ryan and I were just chatting before this began that this is the first NCARB Live of 2016, and this is the year we're going to launch ARE 5.0. So this is actually a really big deal for us. The overview of ARE 5.0 is that we have restructured it. People who have been seeing the information coming out from NCARB for the past year or more have noticed, and the big change is that we're going from a 7-division structure in ARE 4.0 down to a 6-division structure in ARE 5.0. And it's not just a change in structure, it is a realignment of how the content is going to be presented to the candidate. It's now going to be focused around the practice areas of architecture, which is a nice change that's more reflective of what architects do on a day-to-day basis.
Ryan, can you tell us a little bit more about the divisions?
Yeah, so 6 divisions like Jared mentioned, starting with practice management and project management. Practice management is really what it means to run a practice. Project management is what it means to run a project. And then from there we really get into what I think architects feel are the typical progression of an architecture project. So programming and analysis, that's really about defining the problems, defining the issues that are related to the design problem. Project planning and design, so that gets into selection and those initial design concepts. What are our options when you go to solve that problem that you addressed in programming and analysis? That's followed by project development and documentation. So now you're pulling together all this documentation. What does it mean to integrate the systems that you've chosen? What does it mean to actually put together a good set of documents and specifications so that this project can get built? And then finally, construction and evaluation. We all want our projects to get constructed. So that's a big part. What does it mean to do the site walkthroughs and construction administration, but also the evaluation aspect I think is really important to that, which is why it's part of the title. We want to make sure that the buildings we are doing and that as architects we're continually evaluating our work, whether that be post-occupancy evaluations, lead evaluations, any of that type of stuff.
And I'd just like to draw your attention, you have a handout section in the webinar, and the test specification one actually talks a little bit about what he was just saying is included in those handouts. You can download that and dig a little deeper into what's going to be in each exam.
Yeah.
So Jared, is there going to be a difference in the time that people will be in the test center with ARE 5.0 versus 4.0?
There absolutely will be a difference. With the restructure of ARE 5.0, it really was a fresh start for what the architect registration examination is going to be. So we didn't just move items around and then say, okay, it's the same test. This is a very different assessment of architectural candidates. So along with that, though, came some really great efficiencies that we didn't know we were going to have the opportunity to take advantage of until we really started mapping all of the content over. So the good news from a candidate perspective is that it is less time in the test center. The reality is that became possible because of the efficiencies. Part of it is we're also launching a new test driver, simply making the candidate experience better in the test center.
Great. So ARE 5.0 is going to have some new types of questions. Ryan, can you tell us about those?
Yeah, we have 2 new item types specifically that we're launching in 5.0. And just this past week we put out, I guess it was maybe 2 weeks ago now, we put out a What We Know document. As part of that, there were links to our YouTube channel with a couple of these demo videos. I was the narrator, so hopefully they're understandable. But these demo videos really do a good job, I hope that of walking through the new item types. And the first one is hotspots. Hotspots have to do with providing a graphic image to the candidate and then clicking on that image in order to answer the question. Locate this, what's wrong with this, that type of a thing. And then the other one is drag and place. Drag and place gives you a series of design tokens or elements, and you are asked to design and organize those, drag those over, and put them in the proper place in order to, again, respond to whatever the question is. And then the last thing is these case studies. There's a demo video for that as well. Case studies are a collection of items around a singular project. So in a case study, we'll provide you with a project scenario. It may be a project about a school. And so there will be a little bit of a project description, and then there will be 3 or 4 different resource documents, maybe a site plan, a section of specifications, a section of code, whatever is relevant to that division that you're working in. And those questions then will be asked the questions for the case study will ask about those resources. And so you'll really be asked about integrating these different elements, which is how architects work. That's one of the big things that we wanted to focus in this version of the exam, is really getting back to how architects work and this day-to-day aspect of pulling together different pieces of information in order to come up with the right answer.
Great. So, Jared, what happens to the vignettes?
So the vignettes are going away on ARE 5.0. So when you show up to take a test that's an ARE 5.0 division, there are no vignettes. Now, we don't want candidates to forget that they will continue in ARE 4.0, and NCARB is not planning on shutting off ARE 4.0 anytime soon. So if you're currently testing on 4.0 and you want to finish that divisional structure, go for it, because you have until June 30th of 2018. NCARB's continuing to support vignettes through that time frame. We're going to continue to support the online practice program. The free download of the practice program is going to continue to be available on our website. So if you're a 4.0 candidate and you're thinking about staying a 4.0 candidate, absolutely, just build your plan so you can finish before the exam ends on June 30th of 2018.
All right, so let's talk about some of the exam policies, Ryan. Most of them are staying the same.
Yeah, really a lot of them are. We do have a few updates, though, or just things that we want to make candidates aware of. And the one is that we're staying in the Biometric test centers. And that was a strategic decision on our part. Biometric provides the most test centers across the United States. It also provides us the ability to keep going with our biometric check-ins and a secure testing environment, which is really important to what we do. The next thing then is rolling clock. So rolling clock is also staying the same and remaining in effect. The 5-year window is really important to remember. It's going to be in there for 5.0, but it also is going to govern any of those 4.0 divisions that you're hoping to transfer over and earn credit. So always, as a candidate, whenever you're making your plans about transitioning from 4.0 to 5.0, always be assured of where you are in your rolling clock. And then the last one is the retake policy. I think it was a little over a year ago, we were able to shorten the retake policy from 6 months to 60 days. And that's going to be the same in ARE 5.0. Once a candidate takes a division, if they need to retake that division, they'll be able to schedule that 60 days out after that.
And Jared, what about the cost of the exam? Is that changing?
Well, the overall cost of the exam is actually going down, and that's one of the real benefits. With the restructuring and decreasing by a division, NCARB is choosing to keep the division price the same. So instead of 7 divisions at $210, in ARE 5.0, it's still $210 a division, but you now have 1 less division, an overall cost savings.
All right, so back in 2014, NCARB announced the transition plan. Let's just remind everyone how it's going to work a little bit. So first, I think we might have said it, but just to repeat it, how long is ARE 4.0 going to be available?
It's going to be available until June 30 of 2018. And what's going to happen is when we launch the exam, when we launch ARE 5.0 in late 2016, you as a candidate in 4.0 are going to be able to choose when you want to transition to 5.0. So we really have empowered you to understand when is the right time and what's best for you.
All right, and so someone who is started in 4.0, they don't have to wait until 4.0 retires to take 5.0. They could switch anytime they wanted.
Absolutely. That's one of the huge improvements over the way the last transition took place at NCARB. And I was here at NCARB when we went from 3.1 to 4.0, and candidates were basically forced into the track of get done with 3.1, and if you don't, then you'll be transitioned. This one, it really is about that flexibility of empowering the candidate.
Yeah, I think that word empowering is really key. We've provided some new tools as well available on the website. First is the credit model, which we talked about, I think, on a
It's in the handouts?
Yeah, it's in the handouts. We did an NCARB live on it about a year ago or so, kind of walking through what that is. But then just this last November, we launched the ARE calculator, the transition calculator. And so for any of you that have logged into your My NCARB and your candidate record, you'll see that it's directly linked to your record there. So that's automatically pulling in real information based on where you are in the testing process. So it's going to pull in your passes, it's going to pull in where that rolling clock is and how that affects the ability to transition. And it's going to tell you what credits you've already earned. But there's also this sort of what-if scenario, and that gets back to that empowerment, allowing you to kind of mark, all right, I think I'm going to pass this one, and I'm going to pass this one, and then what happens if I transition after that? What credits does it earn me? And so again, it's about allowing candidates to make the decision on when it's best for them to transition.
All right, what about people who really want to finish in 4.0? What kind of tools do we have for them, Ryan?
Well, we've got all the same tools. We're not taking anything away, so we're going to keep 4.0 going until June 30th, 2018, and we're going to keep supporting it in the same way that we are now. So that means our practice program is going to stay available. Like Jared mentioned, the cloud version as well as the downloadable version. All of our exam guides are going to stay out there, and then the NCARB community, the ARE 4.0 community. For those of you that are on it, hopefully you're finding it valuable. For those of you that aren't on it yet, I highly recommend checking it out. It's a community where moderators from NCARB are involved in it, so you can be confident that the information you're receiving is accurate based on their involvement and our responses. But it's also really turned into, it's been great to see over the last year, it really turned into a community of candidates helping each other out and providing answers. I'm one of the moderators, and my job has gotten in some ways easier because so many people have joined the community and are offering up great advice on how to study, response on vignettes, that kind of stuff, feedback on vignettes, and it's been great.
Great. And so all of the information related to ARE 5.0 is available on our website at ncarb.org/ARE5. So be sure to check all that out. Everything we just talked about is there, as well as links to things like the community and all the great resources we have. So let's move on to audience questions. Again, you can submit them on the Q&A on your screen. We've actually already received a few through email and the blog. So I'm going to start with the one that everyone wants to know, Jared. What day is ARE 5.0 going to launch?
And you heard me say a couple minutes ago that NCARB ARE 5.0 is going to launch late 2016, and that's what NCARB keeps saying. The reality is we haven't established the official launch date as of yet. So then the next question is, well, why not? Like, what's NCARB waiting for? And the reality is what NCARB is doing right now is we are still in a very major testing phase as far as testing the systems. The good news is we work with hundreds of architect volunteers every year, and those volunteers have really stepped up and have been writing the items for ARE 5.0, so the exam's ready. But what we also want to do is make sure that the systems are fully in place so that when the candidates go to take this test, they don't experience any technical difficulties. Nothing is more frustrating. Ryan and I, having been candidates on the ARE, nobody wants to go to a test center and have a technical difficulty. So that's what we're doing. We are actually doing a major test in the next couple of weeks, and we'll be testing throughout the next few months. When will we give you the answer? Because that's what everybody wants to know. I am not going to promise an exact day. We're going to tell you what day we're going to launch, but the reality is by this summer, as we roll into July, NCARB I think is going to be very confident in telling you the launch date for ARE 5.0.
So if you want to take 4.0, can you still take 4.0 after 5.0 has already launched?
You absolutely can. We had mentioned if you have your eligibilities for 4.0 now, those are your eligibilities. You're empowered to continue to use those up until June 30th of 2018. So if you are tentatively thinking about even becoming a candidate for the ARE, my suggestion right now is go for it. Get your eligibilities, because once you have those 4.0 eligibilities, you have the control of when you want to self-transition. For people who don't have their exam eligibilities, after 5.0 launches, then when they request new eligibilities for a new candidate, they're going to be a 5.0 candidate.
Great. So Joe would like to know, when do you have to complete the first 3 exams of ARE 5.0 in order to, I think he's talking about the testing strategically. There's a plan.
Okay,
so that's really help candidates out.
That's a good question, Joe. First 3 divisions, just so people are aware, CDS, PPP, and SPD. By passing those 3 divisions in ARE 4.0 and then transitioning over, you earn the most credits. You can actually get done with the ARE in only 5 divisions. And so your question is about when do you have to have those done? Well, June 30th, 2018 is the correct answer. Those divisions are going to be going until ARE 4.0 retires, and then at that point you can transition. Now, if you get them done, January of 2017, hit that transition button and go ahead and make it. You don't have to wait, that's for sure.
When will we get our test results for ARE 5.0? Will it take as long as 4.0?
It is not. So that's one of the real system improvements we are working on with 5.0, and something we're actively testing is a couple of things. First of all, we are testing the capability of being able to release a provisional result at the test center, which I know is a huge improvement in 5.0 compared to 4.0. So it would be really nice at the end of the exam if you at least get that, okay, based on preliminary analysis, it looks like you have passed the exam. That's going to make you feel really good walking out of there. Now, it's not going to be a full score report, because what we know is those score reports still come from the state licensing board. But even today, that's anywhere from 7 to 10 days on average. We're expecting that that's going to be as short as 2 days into the future.
Great. Do IDP hours impact when you can start taking the ARE?
Ooh, that's a jurisdictional specific question. Now, a lot of our jurisdictions do allow what we call early eligibility. So that means you can take IDP, you can be doing IDP and taking the exam at the exact same point, but you definitely want to check out what your jurisdiction's rules are on that, because some have some varying differences.
But what we will say to follow up on that is there's going to be no specific tie between so many hours in a practice area of the new architectural experience program and that corresponding division eligibility in the ARE.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of flexibility in how you want to approach, getting to licensure.
I think another good thing to point out now, though, would be that in ARE 5.0, there's not a specific order that you have to take them in. Now, it makes a lot of sense to talk about them in that practice management, project management, and then progression of a project. But if you're working and your experience is a lot in construction and administration, and you feel really confident in that area because that's a lot of the work that you're doing as an aspiring architect right now, you can take that division first. And then after that, you can go take program analysis, and you can jump around and take them in any order. So in that way, there is a good relationship between the experience that you're gaining in a firm doing your internship, as well as when to take the divisions of the exam.
Will NCARB provide test prep materials?
So NCARB is not a test prep provider, and that's a very, very good thing to understand about sort of the roles and responsibilities in the industry. NCARB's responsibility is to develop the exam, and we want to be very clear in helping our candidates understand what content is being assessed on the exam, but then that's where we really can't cross the line and turn into a test prep company. So what we know is there are test prep companies out there. We're actually working with the test prep company so that they can prepare their materials in advance of the launch of ARE 5.0. But NCARB has no intent of ever really stepping into the test prep industry. Now, test clarity, absolutely, that's our responsibility. So the exam guides of today will continue for ARE 5.0, so some version of great content descriptions, some sample items, proper references per division. That's all going to be coming out. And in our timeline, again, that's July for us, because we figure this exam launches late in the year. We put out all this information in July. It gives candidates plenty of time to prepare.
Laura would like to know, if you start taking 5.0, is it possible to switch back to 4.0?
Sorry, it's not. It's a one direction switch. So if you transition from 4.0 to 5.0, turns out you don't like it, you still have to finish up in 5.0. And so then in the same way, if you start in 5.0, there's no going back to 4.0.
But what we expect is everybody's going to love being in 5.0, that
That's
nobody
true.
is going to want to go back.
Yeah.
Will the eligibility requirements for 5.0 be different than 4.0?
They're not. We're not hearing from any of our jurisdictions that really control eligibility access to the exam that they're going to do anything different with 5.0 than they've been doing with 4.0. So if you're currently a candidate for the great state of Missouri, you're going to continue to be a candidate for the great state of Missouri, and those eligibility requirements aren't going to be changing. And I have no idea why I picked Missouri.
Yeah.
Because I'm not from Missouri.
All right, Rachel would like to know, how do the already passed tests transition over to 5.0? So that's the credit model.
This is the credit model. So again, I'm going to plug the transition calculator. Log into your record, and you'll see it right there. It'll pull up the divisions that you've passed, and it'll tell you exactly how those are combining in order to give you credits in ARE 5.0.
Can you repeat the three important divisions?
Yeah, so the three important divisions to remember in 4.0 are CDS, PPP, and SPD. And we really recommend taking them in that order, but really those three, if you get those done before you transition, you're going to be in the best place. And then what that earns you is credit for practice management, project management,
Construction and evaluation.
And programming analysis. Yeah, so you've taken 3 in 4.0, but you're earning credit for 4 in 5.0.
Very good, Ryan. You have that
Follow
memorized.
that,
It's
yeah.
very good.
A lot of numbers.
Right. And I'll follow up a little bit on maybe the policy side of that question that she may have been alluding to, which is, in the case of getting a credit for practice management, you have to pass 2 divisions of ARE 4.0. So this is where, again, the calculator is going to help you understand this, but that expiration date for that credit in practice management is going to be the earlier of the 2 expiration dates from your passes in construction documents and services and programming, planning, and practice. Again, don't think you have to map out all of this yourself. That's why we built the calculators, to really help you through that.
I think another resource to plug though too is our customer relations directorate. They're fully, in the know on how to handle all this stuff, and they can log into your record and see the same thing that you're looking at, and really walk you through what this means and what the best options are for you, and what it means to transition.
Okay, And just remind everyone about the rolling clock and how that will affect the credit model and transitioning.
Sure. So the key with the rolling clock, as I had said, is the rolling clock drives the expiration date of your credit. So you have to pay attention to that. Ryan had alluded to this earlier, that as you're planning your strategy of should you transition or not, if you're somebody who's been testing in 4.0 for a few years, it may be better for you just to finish in 4.0 and not wait another 8 months or 9 months until ARE 5.0 launches, because that's valid testing time you're giving up if you're waiting to transition.
Okay, and Todd read that the price is going to go up after ARE 4.0 is retired. Is that true?
It is true. NCARB wanted to be very transparent with candidates about the pricing model. The reality is the cost to NCARB is continuing to go up for delivery of the exam. And I think this is also a good time to point out that NCARB doesn't make money on the ARE. And I know a lot of people, when I say that to them, they always give me that like, Jared, you're crazy look. But it is the truth. The reality is NCARB runs the examination at a subsidy level. So we generate revenue in other places and we subsidize the cost of both the current internship program and the examination. But what we do know is that to sort of keep pace, at least with not losing too much money, the exam price is going to go up to $235 after 4.0 does retire. So that's, again, not until into 2018.
But it is one less division still.
It is one less division. And when you do the math, the reality is even after the price goes up, the 6 divisions of 5.0 are less than the total of the 7 divisions of 4.0.
Great. All right, so Gianna wants to know, as a third-year student in a 5-year program, what is the best way to begin prep for the ARE exam?
Focus on graduating. Yeah, and I don't say that jokingly. Take advantage of your opportunities that you have in school, and then when you get out, really start to focus on what the exam is and how to get the best internship that provides you, the experience that you need and hits all the different areas of AXP. But in school, you're there for a good reason. That's to gain a good base knowledge of what is architecture and what does it mean to put a building together and those types of things. So don't worry too much about the exam just yet. Focus on school, and then when you get out, we'll still be here and we'll have plenty of information to help you at that time.
Right. And one thing you can do, though, is, as Ryan had said, focus on that experience, because that's a huge benefit. Yeah. Interestingly enough, I also went through a 5-year program, and after my 3rd year was able to go on and get a job working in a firm, and that experience was invaluable because it really showed me what you do in an architectural office, and that is what is going to prepare you for the examination, is taking that knowledge you're learning in school, combining it with that real world experience to understand that when you come in and you're presented with a case study, you're going to go, oh yeah, I know what to do, because you maybe not have done it directly in the office, but you've seen others in the office do it. You've overheard those conversations in the break room. That's education. It's all education.
Now, when you do graduate, start testing right away, because there's also just something about getting done with school, being in that mentality of studying, being in the mentality of taking tests. That becomes a lot harder the further you get out from school. I'm sure there are people will tell you the older you get, the harder it is to just take a test. Your mind just kind of thinks differently. So,
all right. Robert would like to know, for project management, are the AIA contract documents going to remain a focus?
Yes. In fact, if you look at the test spec, which we talked about and I think is available in the handouts, it really outlines everything that is in project management. And you'll see that contract documents is a significant portion of that. In fact, let me just switch over. Contracts make up almost 25 to about 30% of that division. So in 95 questions, a good chunk of those are going to have to do with contract documents, and ours are all based off of the AIA contract documents.
What are the advantages in switching to ARE 5.0?
There are going to be a lot of, again, as another siren goes by, but there are a few different advantages to switching to 5.0. And there's some advantages in staying in 4.0, and I'll sort of address both. Like, why would you make the switch? So why would you stay in 4.0? You would stay in 4.0 because you're already on a very successful path of completing 4.0. So if you're done with 5 of the 7 divisions, and you really understand the structure and you understand the vignette software, there's a real benefit of just keeping going and getting done. Yeah. Now, what are some of the advantages to switching to 5.0? Well, one is the fact that you can maximize your transition credits and just take less tests overall. Yeah. If you can go from taking 7 to taking 5, that's a real benefit. There's cost savings involved with that. The other reality is you are then getting away from the vignettes, where you don't have to learn the vignette software to demonstrate that. Instead, you're coming in and looking at hotspot items and drag in place. And back to the videos Ryan talked about, if you watch those videos, you're going to see these are very easy item types to manipulate, which is fantastic. We understand that our candidates struggle with the vignette software the way it is because it's not Revit, it's not AutoCAD, it's its own custom software. The drag and place items are a very easy item type to navigate.
Can we use 4.0 materials to study for 5.0?
You can. So the reality is we have transitioned a significant portion of our 4.0 item bank into what is our 5.0 item bank. So an item bank is our collection of questions that we use to create an exam. Now the difficulty is that there's a mapping process, and so things don't line up quite the same. And Jared talked at the very beginning about how this is structurally a different exam. You know, we've gone through buckets of content. You go in, you take a structural systems exam. It's all about structures, to now an exam that's based on these different practice areas. So all of the information that you have on structures, that ballast structures book or whatever it may be, yes, that is still relevant study material. It's just not organized in a way that is going to be maybe the most helpful in studying for 5.0. But that's part of what we're trying to do with the test prep industry right now, is help them understand the content they have, how to reorganize it, and again, get that best information out there to you guys to be able to study.
Yeah, and the simple example is if you have your current 4.0 study material and you're studying for practice management in ARE 5.0, great. You look at our credit model. Our credit model shows you that it's construction documents and services and programming, planning, and practice that earn that credit. Pull out both of those study books as you're preparing for the future, you know, practice management division, because that's the content that's headed that way. And of course, and check out the exam guide for practice management to make sure that all of the study materials you do have are addressing the content breakdown.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is do it with the test spec next to you, so you can say, okay, this is what it is in 5.0. I want to find it in these two resources that I have. That way you're also not just overstudying. There's an element of overstudying that's not very helpful either.
Okay, what type of biometric security measures have to be done before when I arrive at the test center?
Sure, so let's talk through exam security and what it means to NCARB as a whole. You know, NCARB does care a lot about exam security, partly because this item bank that we have, we reuse those items, you know, multiple years. So if an exam is breached for whatever reason, that's a loss of content. That actually runs the risk of us having to turn off a division of the exam, which would be an absolute nightmare from our perspective and from your perspective as a candidate. So what we do at the test center are several things. One, you are going to have to provide a valid photo identification that has a signature on it, so that when you check in, they're going to look at your ID, they're going to look at you and be like, yes, this is you, and also that name on the ID matches the name in our system, right? That's, first of all, just the first line of verification. The second thing you are going to have to do is you are going to have to provide a fingertip swipe. Again, that fingertip swipe is not a fingerprint ID. It's not, you know, like compared against the FBI database. It's nothing like that. Yeah. What that really does is when you do the fingertip swipe, it creates a unique number identifier for you. So let's say Ryan is testing. Well, we know Ryan has to go back at least 7 times today and at least 6 times in the future, so that we make sure that it continues to be Ryan who comes back all 6 times. Yeah. So those are really the 2 major biometric security features that we have in place.
Yeah, and then there's also an element of turn your pockets inside out, just to make sure you aren't sneaking things in. If you have glasses, they're probably going to check those. You don't want you wearing in a set of Google glasses and taking pictures of every screen in the exam. So there's that aspect of the security check-in that's also important, just to not catch you off guard.
What information will you see on the ARE 5.0 score report?
Well, you're going to see the ARE 5.0 score reports are going to be very similar to the ARE 4.0 score reports with a few enhancements. And this is something, again, we're excited about. I know it shows we're kind of testing nerds. But it is because of the fact that the 5.0 score report is going to give you a more refined view on the score report where you fail. Unfortunately, we give you descriptive feedback today. We're actually going to refine that so you get even more granular information about where you didn't perform well. And we think that's going to help candidates prepare for those retest opportunities.
Yeah. And just one more time, it is a one-way transition. You can only go to 5.0, you can't go back.
Correct.
All right.
Once you hit transition, and then hit transition again, and then are you sure you want to transition, you'll be a 5.0 candidate, and then that's where you need to stay after that.
All right. Yeah, we answered that. So what percentage of correct answers in ARE 5.0 would result in a passing mark?
It's a good question.
And we don't know.
We don't know yet.
So we refer to that as what's called the cut score.
Yep.
Now, every division, and we'll tell you this right now about ARE 4.0, every ARE 4.0 division has a cut score established. What's the right number of items you need to pass the exam? And it's not a stock answer. A lot of people say, oh, it must be 70%. Yeah, it's not 70%. But the reality is, it comes down to the complexity of each exam that is given. And so cut scores range. Mm-hmm. It can be a higher percentage, it can be a lower percentage, and it's all based on the difficulty of the exam, which the difficulty of the exam is measured based on the difficulty of the questions that make up that version. So this is one of those really tricky questions to answer because the answer is it really depends, and so we can't say yes or no when it's not 70%.
Yeah.
But why we said specifically in 5.0, why we said, well, we don't know, is because with every new exam, there's a process of establishing that new cut score. And to establish a new cut score, we need good exam data, which means we don't get that exam data until right after ARE 5.0 launches. For us to make up a cut score before the exam launches would be a totally terrible idea.
Yeah.
And we're not going to do that.
65.
We're not going to do that to you, the candidates. What we're going to do is we're going to collect some initial data, and then we're going to make that informed, correct decision.
All right, so Allison would like to know, when does your rolling clock start?
The rolling clock starts, Allison, as soon as you pass a division. And it's really as soon as you pass your first division, but the easiest way to think about it is that each division you pass then has a 5-year expiration date.
All right. How soon will we be able to schedule the ARE 5.0 exam once the release date is announced?
So we're going to announce the launch date, and then after we announce the launch date, that is the day that we're basically going to turn on the My Examination system for 5.0. So if NCARB comes out and says that we are going to turn this exam on November 1st, 2016, that falls within the late 2016 timeframe. On November 1st, what's going to happen is anybody who adds the ARE service inside of My Examination is going to now see this button that they're going to be able to transition to ARE 5.0. Once they transition, once they click that button, as Ryan had said, and then confirm that they really do want to transition, they are going to have 5.0 eligibilities generated. As soon as those eligibilities are generated, which is almost near real time, you could go in and schedule an appointment with that eligibility.
Hoda would like to know if ARE 5.0 will be available in Biometric test centers outside of the U.S.
Yeah, so we currently deliver in 3 international test centers, London, Abu Dhabi, and Hong Kong. And we're going to keep delivering in London, Abu Dhabi, and Hong Kong.
And Canada.
And Canada, that's true. Our neighbors to the north, we think of them as one of us when we think about
right.
North American testing, but I guess it is international. So yeah, all of the Biometric test centers in Canada are also available.
As well as our territories, so Guam,
yes.
U.S. Virgin Islands,
Puerto Rico.
Yeah. Okay, so
very specific. Yeah.
What test prep companies are NCARB working with?
So NCARB has reached out to all of the test prep companies, and this is something we're pretty excited about because this is something NCARB has never done in the past. There truly is a first happening at NCARB next Monday and Tuesday, in that we reached out to all of the known test prep companies for ARE 5.0, and we invited them to come into our office, meet with us for 2 days, and really talk through ARE 5.0, allowing them to refine their materials prior to the launch.
Yeah.
So we are going to be putting out some press releases after the event, letting candidates know who came, some of the stuff we talked about, those kind of things. But this was an open door policy as far as NCARB is concerned. We're not trying to limit test prep in any way. We're embracing test prep.
Yeah. We're not partnering with anyone specific. As Jared said, I think it's just really important to be clear that this was open to any test prep provider. They were free to come, join us, and let's talk ARE 5.0 for 2 days.
And the great news is a majority of them are showing up. I mean, and we knew this would be a bit of a challenge. We didn't know. Ryan and I were actually a little bit nervous that we might say, hey, everybody, come talk to us about the exam, and nobody would show up.
Yeah,
and then
it'd be like one person. It'd be a very boring workship for 2 days.
The very good news is that a lot of the test prep industry is coming, and some of those that haven't are already reaching out saying, I just can't make it. I'm really disappointed. I want to follow up with you. And we're saying, absolutely, we're going to follow up with them, give them all the same information as those that are going to be here face-to-face.
That's really good news for candidates.
It is, because it gives you a level of assurance that they're not just sort of guessing about what the content is that's going to be assessed on the exam. They're able to come here and find out in greater detail.
All right, how will we know how many questions of the exam will be case study, Dragon Place, or hotspots beforehand?
You will not specifically at least. So The size of the case study varies on the size of the division. So in practice management, our smallest division, only 80 questions, you can expect the case study in there to be less items, probably 10 to 15 range, versus project planning and design, which is our biggest division, one of our two biggest divisions at 120 items. That's going to be pushing that 15 to 20 items for a case study. And then really, whether it's a hotspot or a drag in place, we don't build our exams to have a certain representation. We build it to put the best question on to get that assessment objective. So, and if we're trying to ask something about flashing, and the very best question about flashing happens to be a hotspot item, we're going to use a hotspot item to do that.
All right, Matthew would like to know, will there be online practice programs to practice these hotspots and drag in place?
That is actually one of the other things we're investigating right now prior to the launch, is how can we make sure candidates are fully up to speed on how to use the items. That's the first iteration of these videos. Mm-hmm. It was a quick, giving you the preview. We know we're months away, so we figured that was the right level of detail at this time. Yeah. If we're not able to really support the ability to practice these items through the internet, then what we're going to do is roll out more information, again, probably better in-depth videos, really talking also more about the scoring behind it and some of those things. Our goal is to make sure you as a candidate fully understand how these items work. But the great news is a hotspot is as simple as clicking the mouse button. Yeah. It's fantastically easy. Drag in place is as simple as it sounds, which is click, hold down the mouse, drag, and let go, and the item is placed. And you can relocate things whenever you want.
Yeah, Matthew, if you haven't watched those videos yet, go do it. The need for practice, to be able to practice these items, is certainly not anywhere like it is in the graphic vignettes that we currently have.
And just to repeat, they're available on our YouTube channel, and they're also, I think, the feature story of our blog right now. So easy places to find them.
There you go.
Nathaniel would like to know, will ARE 5.0 become more integrated within graduate programs?
So that's an interesting question, because the answer is yes, maybe, depending on the graduate program. One thing NCARB does not want to do is NCARB does not want to try to control higher education at all. We understand our role is about developing an independent exam to assess competency to practice architecture independently. Mm-hmm. We understand that the role of higher education is broader than that. And higher education definitely understands that their role is much broader than that. But what you may hear is something that we're calling the Integrated Path to Licensure, which is an initiative that NCARB has been working on with some schools where they are going to allow their students to start testing on the ARE while they are still in their educational program. This is a joint effort between, I think, 10 schools right now are part of this program, or actually 14.
I think it's 14 total,
across 10 jurisdictions. And they are, in collaboration with the jurisdiction, developing this program. But again, NCARB is not telling them how to do it. NCARB has provided the exam information to the schools. The schools are really taking the initiative to rework their curriculum, provide those experience opportunities and those exam opportunities while they're still students.
And the list of those 14 schools that are looking into IPEL are going to be participating are also available on our website. Do you expect pass rates to go down with ARE 5.0?
So I will say this. I have a prediction of what's going to happen with ARE 5.0 pass rates.
Are you going to go on the record now?
And I'm not going to go on the record right now. But what I'm going to tell you is I am not concerned about ARE 5.0 pass rates. Because what Ryan and I have, which I know you don't have, is we have that behind the scenes look at how our candidates are currently performing on those multiple choice items compared to performing on the vignette items, right? And we understand that the majority of our items moving forward are going to be multiple choice items or these new hotspot and drag in place, which are much easier to navigate and to finish. And the reality is we see a potential, if nothing else, like a nice shift in pass rates. But predictions, no.
Okay. Where can I find more about what's going to be on each of the divisions?
It's that test specification document. We've mentioned it a couple times. It's available, I think, in the handouts related to this webinar. And then it's also available on the website. So if you go to www.ncarb.org, across the top there it says Architect Registration Examination. Click on that, and then all the way to the far right-hand side, ARE 5.0, you'll find it there, as well as information on really everything we've talked about today. So that could be a really good resource for anything ARE 5.0 you're looking for.
And one thing, I'll plug a little bit of what's up and coming. The test specification is a great document, and it's really an outline. But we're also planning beginning in April to release a blog series where we're going to start comparing and contrasting the different divisions of ARE 5.0. So we're going to be announcing that when it launches, but definitely come back because that's going to allow you to start to understand these exams and have some of that back and forth dialogue about what is project management compared to practice management. Because I know that's where some of the confusion at this time is, that we understand the delineation between those two, and we're going to help you understand that too before the exam launches.
And just to repeat, how far in advance will we know ARE 5.0 before it launches?
2 weeks, right?
It's going to be definitely longer than 2 weeks.
Okay, more than 2 weeks.
As I said, the intent of NCARB is to announce the launch date sometime in July at the latest. We're also saying it's going to launch sometime in late 2016, which means sometime between October and December. So probably the shortest time frame we would ever give you is 3 months, but it's very likely, maybe a little bit longer than that. And what we know is 3 months, based on a lot of our candidate data, shows us that that is a really good amount of time to just prepare. Because as Ryan said, overstudying can be one of the worst things you do.
Yeah.
This one's specifically for you, Jared. Why do you expect candidates to love 5.0 so much more than 4.0?
That is well, thank you for asking that question. I think they are going to love 5.0 for actually a couple of reasons. One, it's much easier to navigate the exam. The user experience as a whole for 5.0 is going to be more enjoyable, if I can use that term for an exam.
Because everyone loves
taking an exam. But what I can tell you is, but it matters. User experience matters, and we all know this, right? You go to a website, and if it's a good website, easy to navigate, for some reason, it's just you don't stress out. And that's what we're trying to build 5.0, the user experience, to be. It's going to be a less stressful experience in the test center. That's a great thing. The other reason I think candidates are going to love 5.0 is because it is aligned to the architectural experience program, and it's aligned to the regular practice areas of architecture. Yeah. So I remember studying for structural systems and racking my brain over and over, just like overthinking structural systems, which is something I hadn't done since my 3rd year in school.
Yeah.
So I had to kind of dial back and then try to relearn all of it. Whereas the reality is when I understand that 5.0 is going to have structures, but structures is in the divisions about design, I'm not going to be freaking out about structures as much. Now I'm going in, taking a test about design, which is what I do in the office as a practicing architect, or getting ready to be a practicing architect. So will they love it? I actually think candidates will love 5.0 compared to 4.0.
Yeah. Cameron would like to know, how is the California exam affected by these changes?
So interestingly enough, I've had some conversations with the California Architects Board on this. They are in the process of reevaluating the California supplemental exam. They, similar to NCARB, reevaluate their content every so often and make modifications. I know they're looking at that. They're trying to understand where our content areas are being beefed up. Maybe they can lessen some of their areas. But I will tell you, it's not going away. If you want to get licensed in California, you are going to have to take the California supplemental exam.
Ryan, can you tell us a little bit more about case studies? Will you be able to move around the case study and mark questions and some of the other traditional things you can do now?
Yeah, that's a good question. So case studies are always going to be located at the very end of an exam. When we were putting together, designing how is a division going to be administered, we thought it seemed really mean to just click go and then start with a case study. And it seemed confusing to put it right in the middle. So case studies will always be located at the end of the exam. Now, part of that user experience that Jared was talking about, you're going to be able to navigate to those really easily if you want to start out with those right away. So you have the ability as a candidate to either take them in the middle, at the very beginning, at the very end. I think that's the first thing, is just getting to them, deciding when you're most comfortable in taking them. And then kind of what was the rest of the...
Just can you mark questions and go back to them?
Yeah, and you can. And so it's going to function the same way the rest of the items in the exam are, but those items are just going to be specifically about those case study resources. So you'll be able to mark for review, you'll be able to skip something, you'll be able to go back to the beginning and start from there and then come back and ask a few questions. In 5.0, there's no hard break like there is in 4.0. So for those of you that have taken a 4.0 exam, you take multiple choice, you take a mandatory 15-minute break, and then you come back and take vignettes. It's not that way in 5.0. You'll be able to take that case study kind of whenever you want. It's not after a break or before a break.
So William would like to know, if you transition to ARE 5.0, does your rolling clock restart or does it stay the same?
Well, those expiration dates, as Ryan had referred to them, which I think, again, is also the right way to think about it. If you have an expiration date on a 4.0 exam that then creates credits for 5.0, that credit in 5.0 is going to have an expiration date based on the earliest expiration date of your 4.0 exam. So it doesn't start over. You don't get like a fresh 5 as a way to think about it, because you have a credit based on one of those previously passed divisions. So it's all integrated.
People have a lot of questions about when study materials are going to be available. So can you talk about that one more time?
Yeah. We expect to put out, again, we're not putting out true study materials, test prep resources, but all of our information is going to be coming out in that July timeframe. So exam guides, if we end up doing some item type demos or at least more enhanced videos, probably launching an ARE 5.0 community around the same time as well, so that we're on there involved as moderators, asking questions. All of that you can expect around the July timeframe. Now, when does a for-profit test prep company put their information out? That we don't really have any control over. We're meeting with them on Monday. Again, we hope that they've been working on this for a long time and they're going to say, okay, yeah, we've got a couple things to change based on this, but we're ready to send it to the publisher and get it out on the streets by June. That part we just don't know. We don't have control over their business models.
All right, so we only have a few minutes left. So I'm going to say to each of you, what is the one takeaway you want people to know about this year as we prepare to launch 5.0?
I guess if I start, I would say it's just get ready. And that get ready is an independent thing that each one of you has to really think about. If you're currently testing in 4.0, get ready to get done if you're that close. If you are one of those people just starting 4.0 and you're waiting for the transition, yeah, get ready for the transition. Get those 3 divisions done, position yourself, study for 5.0, and when 5.0 launches, go for it. Don't sit back and fear the unknown. Because what I would want to say to every candidate, if I could talk to you face to face, is that Ryan and I have been working on this exam for well over 3 years getting it ready. And we work with hundreds of architect volunteers that are helping us get this exam ready. This is not an exam to be afraid of. Unfortunately, we can say that because we know it. We're so close to it. And so I just want to convey that message to the candidates that NCARB's ready to help you get through this and actually see the opportunities in taking advantage of this transition.
And Ryan?
Well, Jared took every word possible that I could have said.
Excellent.
So I guess I would just reiterate kind of the same things. Think strategically. So strategically, if you're a 4.0 candidate, means keep testing, take the right divisions now so that you can maximize those credits. And maybe strategically is just get done, because that's always an option. We talked about how 4.0 is going to be available till June 30th, 2018. If that's what you're comfortable with, great. Strategically for you means just get done with 4.0. But if you're starting to get ready to study for 5.0 or you think that's where you want to begin, great. Think strategically on how you're going to get your test prep resources and what divisions you want to take. Map out the order that you think you want to take them in. And like Jared said, don't be afraid of it, and just jump in, and we're here to help. I guess that's the other thing too. Always know that you can contact us through our customer relations, through the various communities, through our blog, through Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of our various avenues that we're communicating with you. That means you can communicate back to us in the same way.
All right, so just to reiterate, almost everything that we've talked about is available on our website, and ARE 5.0 specific information is at ncarb.org/ARE5. And we also have the ARE 4.0 community on Google+, which Ryan is a moderator of. So if you really want to get done
Ryan NCARB, that's me.
If you really want to get done with 4.0, he and some of our other staff members are there to help you, as well as some of your other candidates. So thank you for joining us today. If we didn't get to your questions, don't worry, because we'll post some of the main ones on the blog, and this webinar will actually be available on YouTube and the blog in about a week, so you can watch it all over again. So again, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye, everyone.